Okay, so I'll just start us off by saying that this video is being made by a subset of the members of the diversity committee. Our diversity committee has about, well, actually almost everyone in the department has been a part of the committee at one point or another in some way. We typically have about double this amount of people, but we came together for this extra meeting to answer questions about issues related to living in Utah and diversity. So I will read these questions, and then we have people who are going to jump in and talk about them. So we have a bunch of you ask questions about the cost of living, where most students live, whether a car is needed, and what fun things can be done around Salt Lake City.
Yeah, so I can speak a little bit to just my own experience with the cost of living. Of course, like in grad school, the stipend is not a super large amount of money to live on. And I think Salt Lake can feel cheap or expensive, I think, depending on what your prior experience is. So definitely compared to New York City or Boston, or the more expensive East Coast cities or West Coast cities, Salt Lake feels very cheap to me. I'm paying about $700 in rent, and I have one roommate. So that feels pretty doable on the stipend. I know that people do struggle a bit to find one bedrooms if they want to live alone. So I think that is a consideration for some people within the stipend. And then in terms of other things, definitely, I think groceries are pretty affordable here, at least compared to in other cities. And there are a lot of options for sort of like discounts and like buy nothing economy groups and sort of other workarounds to get things that you need.
I can speak a little bit to whether a car is needed for living in the Salt Lake area. I have personally had a car and not had a car throughout my graduate experience here. So I think it's definitely not needed, but I will say it depends a little bit on where you live. So if you are planning to come without a car, you can totally make it work. You get, as students, you get free public transportation. So all the bus routes, the tracks, train system, everything like that is free. So if you can find a place that is nearby a bus route or the tracks route, you can easily get to campus. There's a spot right out or a bus stop right outside our building, which is really convenient. And then also as a clinical student, most of my practicum sites have also been on the bus route because most of mine have been in the like health system, which is right by campus. There are some practicum sites that maybe would need a car. I'm thinking of some of the ones that are a little bit farther away, but I also know that students have made that work without a car. So I think definitely not necessary. It can be done without a car.
I'll speak a little bit more about the cost of living. So kind of going off of what Ava was talking about, I've heard from some students who had postdocs or other jobs in between undergrad and grad school, it's a little bit more difficult to get used to a different lifestyle being on the stipend. Coming from someone who was paying tuition for undergrad beforehand, it feels like quite a lot more. And I think myself and other students still have a little bit of wiggle room to do fun things. So traveling a bit. I know that I bought a ski pass every year and it doesn't feel like I'm living paycheck to paycheck, but it's definitely a different lifestyle if you're used to having a full salary.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Kirsten. I will say that my perspective is coming from someone who worked for a few years before coming here, so slightly different.
I can talk a little bit about living on campus. When I first moved there, I live off campus. It's a little bit expensive, living on campus is cheaper than living downtown or in other area now, but you need to first apply to live on campus. You just need to have your information in the application, and they will notice you when there is a room available, and then you can move in. The rent to live on campus for me as sharing an apartment with a roommate is about like $500-ish, including all utilities, which is a pretty good deal. And if you are living with a family, there's also family housing options, which you can have the whole apartment. And I think Jack from our committee also have more information in the email. I'm not sure if I think we can share that the rent for family housing is about like 1,000 for the whole family, for the whole apartment. And on-campus housing is pretty close to our building, and you can either walk there, like it's about like 10 minutes or 15 minutes. If you take a shuttle, it's like even it's more convenient. Yeah.
The U is building new family and graduate student housing not too far from campus. So, I mean, that's not going to be an option for a few years, but that is something that that they are working on. And there is a shuttle that will go from those new buildings to campus. So.
Okay, so the next question was around LGBTQ plus friendly areas to live and hang out, and life in Utah in general, and also the winters in Utah. How are they with the East Coast being frozen over? I think people have a lot of questions about winter right now. So, yeah.
So I'll talk about the LGBTQ issue. So, I moved here in 1999. And I was a partnered lesbian. And that was the thing I was most worried about when I visited here, and when my partner and I were talking about it. I had a lot of stereotypes about Utah. And so when we moved here and we sort of took the risk, we were kind of gobsmacked by how many other LGBTQ people we started meeting right away that had never really been a part of our like neighborly life, or it. And suddenly it was not just like the people you choose to be friends, just there were so many gay people around. They just ended up in my friendship network like by accident. And I'm like, when does that happen? So, and that was back in 1999. And since then, it has changed quite dramatically. It's gotten even better. And like we ended up on the Utne readers list of like top like 10 hidden gay towns. And I'm like, hell yeah, like it's part of my top 10. So it really is a very supportive community. And therefore there are several neighborhoods, but also like I don't even live in one of the more gay areas. I live in the Avenues. It's like a heterosexual family area. And there's like queer people all over the place. Liberty Park and the area around Liberty Park, and Sheila, say the magic words.
Liberty Wells?
Liberty Wells.
Liberty Wells, that's my neighborhood.
And you'll notice that you'll see rainbow flags, and we have a pride. It's not a pride parade anymore. It's a pride festival. It's a pride weekend. It's a pride assault, like a palooza. That's what it is. And people come from all over the Mountain West. Who knew? So it really is a very, very completely comfortable and safe place, at least in terms of my experience.
I will also add that there's a lot of like queer specific events, lots of drag brunches. I went to my first event post-COVID was a drag, clearly I like drag, was a drag show that was called Loud and Queer, and it was like really amazing. And there's a bunch of kind of like social medias that you can follow that will point out the specific events outside of just the Pride weekend. And they're all really wonderful, and it's really safe and affirming, and I really enjoy it.
I can speak a little bit to the resources you have on campus as well. We've got the LGBT Resource Center, which is a huge advantage that we have at the U. It's amazing. They do so much. They have a space in the student union that people who are queer can go and feel safe and do their homework and just meet other people. They hold events with the different departments on campus, and they also offer trainings for the departments as well. We had one on pronoun usage here last year, and it was really amazing to have that. And the U also has their own Pride that's usually in October, I think. Can't remember exactly, but it's a whole week in October that the university has Pride. You can see my Zoom background is the U that they decorated with the rainbow flag. So the university itself, in my experience, has been a very accepting and safe place for queer people. And there are not a ton of LGBTQ bars in Salt Lake, but there are a few that you can find and feel safe and feel a sense of community at as well. So.
I can speak to winter. This is my first winter here. And as a person who does not like winter so much, I was a little bit reluctant coming back to a climate zone that had a real taste of it. So having lived in a few different places, a few different climate zones, I can say that this is more temperate in my experience so far than the East Coast. And we've had a few snowfalls. The roads have been kind of interesting, but it's pretty mild. And I take my dog out morning and evening. So like I'm experiencing the more extreme end of the temperature range, and it's pretty comfortable. Sheila, did you want to add more?
No, I was definitely going to make sure that we got the winter thing. I definitely realized after living in Seattle, I came here from Seattle, and I realized that I did not like rain and cloud cover. And so even though we do have snow here, I really appreciate that it's like bright blue skies a lot of the times, and these like, you know, roads that you can drive on and navigate, but beautiful white snow covered mountains. So if you do like skiing and other outdoor things, not everyone has to like skiing and outdoor things to be accepted here. But if you do like those things, you'll definitely find that there are lots of places where you can, you know, be living in warmer weather and be skiing in colder weather.
Also, if you're from the East Coast, like I am, I hated winter. I hated anything cold, but it's a whole different ballgame. It's dry here. It's not humid. So even though the temperature is maybe lower than what you're used to, it's a lot easier to still live and not feel miserable because it's not as humid. It's a dry cold.
I know this wasn't the question, but I also just want to say that that's also true of summers. East Coast summers are way worse. Not being humid makes a very big difference.
And I want to touch on one other element of winter weather that, you know, we do have very manageable snowfall, and the weather, the temperature is really nice, but we do have a kind of interesting weather effect called inversion, which essentially we live in a bowl in Salt Lake Valley, and in the winter time, you know, we do get a lot of sun, and because we live in this bowl, the cold air just makes all of the pollution kind of just sit, and the bright sun will react with the pollutants, and so you just kind of get a lot of haze as well. And there have been some studies that look at inversion and the effect on health, and it's not trivial. And that is something that if you are concerned about, you know, respiratory health, that is something that you might want to consider.
I will also say I'm so impressed by the snow plowing here. It's amazing to me that like it is back east. If we got this type of snow that we got here, you wouldn't leave your house for like 3 days. But here, like snow's really bad and they like clean it up right away. It's like absolutely amazing. And to counteract the inversion during the winter, you get to look at beautiful mountains covered in snow all day. And I feel like I'm living in someone's screensaver. So that's kind of a pro.
I wanted to underscore that it is quite bright because that's my greatest aversion to winter on the East Coast is that it's so dark and we just have abundant sunshine. And that was someone reassured me before I accepted. And so that meant a lot.
So the next question is resources specifically for LGBTQ plus individuals. So Lisa, I think you were going to chime in on that.
So the university has an LGBTQ resource center, which I think was already mentioned, which has a ton of stuff going on. Their support, they have like 24-hour chat support, like literally no one's ever really on their own. There are also citywide resources, the Pride Center, which I've done a lot of collaborative work with, and they also basically, if you need anything, they can provide it. There are also organizations like Encircle House, which works with LGBTQ individuals and their family. They have therapists who specialize in relationships and families at all levels. And they also have support programs. And so for individuals who really want to make sure that, for example, they can find a therapist who is not clueless, there's 18 million ways to find those therapists. And there actually is locally an LGBTQ affirmative therapists guild. And so there's an entire network of people providing those services. The University of Utah has one of the best centers for transgender health in the country. We have top-notch surgical and other medical procedures at all stages of the transition process. I've met with the woman who directs that center. It is really a leader. And so that is another really, really helpful and really wonderful resource.
I'll add that Encircle also has like social nights. So I know many, many people who go and hang out at Encircle on Wednesday nights, and just that's a great place to meet people, to connect, and there's people of all different age ranges. So really love Encircle, they're great. The next set of questions is more about living in Utah. One of the first questions is Salt Lake bike friendly? And I'll take this one because I love riding my bike. I ride my bike pretty much every weekend, and there are a ton of trails and paths. So many paved trails that you can go on, and paved mountain roads that you can go on if you want to go uphill into the mountains. And there's also mountain biking trails. So if you want more of an unpaved biking experience. The other thing about Salt Lake City is it's a grid, and many of the grid streets are like main driving streets, but there's like one block off of those, there's usually a less traffic filled road. So if you're using your bike to commute around, then you can figure out a way to go a block off of where the traffic is and have a pretty safe and traffic-free driving experience. The problem with bike commuting is that the University of Utah is uphill. So you have a couple of choices here. You can either be really super fit, which I got an e-bike, so I actually just turn on the battery full force and am able to get up the hill. Alternatively, you can bike to the base of the hill and then hop onto tracks to get up the hill. So you can still bike commute, but it takes a little extra step.
I too have an e-bike, and I got an e-bike specifically to get up the hill to get to campus. But I know that there's some very seriously impressive people in the cognitive neuroscience area who ride just like normal bikes up to campus. And I'm always very impressed. So, if you're a go-getter, you can make it up the hill without a motor.
I think the key is to like go north-south and then east-west and then north-south, if you zigzag a little, that gives you a lot of
climbing up a mountain.
Yeah. So you will develop good leg muscles.
Switchbacks up to the university.
Okay, so other people I think wanted to chime in about, is Salt Lake a diverse place to live, a safe place to live, and any complaints about Salt Lake?
So I want to kind of just like echo what I said about cost of living, which is I think it really depends on where you're coming from. So I grew up in like small town, rural Pennsylvania, and then went to college in Maine. And then I also like lived in Brooklyn for several years before moving here. So I think I got pretty used to the diversity of like a very large city. And this definitely isn't that, but it also isn't rural New England. And it is still a city, and you do still see like a good racial, ethnic, and just like types of people diversity here, which I was like very pleasantly surprised by because I did not visit before I moved here. So I did not know what to expect.
Definitely echo that with my own personal experience coming from San Diego, California. And, in San Diego, like you see a lot of people that are coming from Tijuana, as well as a lot of that influence, even in the food, right? You can go get tacos El Gordo over there. You can't really get that here, that specific restaurant anyway. But there are pockets of that community, if that's what you're looking for as well. There's a lot of more like Latin American markets, some a little more niche that go further out than Mexico in terms of their food that they do offer. But it really depends on that perspective. If I compare San Diego to Salt Lake City, it's less diverse. But again, there's so many other options here in terms of other ethnicities and restaurants, which I'm sure we can all touch on as well as we go through this, talk. But it's really about that perspective. But I would not say that. I would say that Salt Lake City itself is also very diverse in a various amount of ways, like we've just talked about.
Yeah, I think if the city itself is very diverse, once you get further north or further south, start getting into the suburbs, that's where it's going to change to be probably more of what the stereotype of Utah is, where you've got a lot of white middle class people in the suburbs and not much diversity there. So, but the city itself and the university, I feel like have a lot of diversity. So.
I'd love for us to just take a minute and chime in about restaurants. I was really surprised about the quality of food and the diversity of food here in Salt Lake City. So I would love for other people to share their surprise favorite restaurants, but there's
Greek food.
Greek.
First of all, there's the Greek festival in September every year. I'm half Greek. I didn't realize that Salt Lake is home to the largest Greek population, like west of Los Angeles or east of Los Angeles. So it's insane. So there's Manolo's is a Greek restaurant. Oh my God, so good, because they have like the small plates and they're really nicely done. I'd actually never seen like nicer Greek food. I was used to it being like, like my grandma. This is like nice Greek food. Aristo's is also really good. So
the Med, also good. Fantastic Ethiopian food. I was completely surprised to learn how much I would love eating Ethiopian food.
Yeah,
I've gone on like a wild tour of all of the Indian restaurants in Salt Lake, and they're never ending. Number one, have not hit all of them, and they're all exceptional. I think everybody likes Bombay House the best. That's kind of the one that everybody talks about. It's not the best. Himalayan Kitchen is the best.
Oh yeah.
Right now, Himalayan Kitchen is the best. Yes, and there's a ton of Indian groceries and Middle Eastern groceries, and so you can get anything that you want in terms of food and in terms of groceries, for real.
What a great microbrewery section as well. Like our microbrews for beer are incredible. We've got some good ones. My favorite is it's Squatter's Chasing Tail. It's
I was going
good.
to say, not related to food, but one of the things if I leave Utah for my internship year, one of the things that I'm the most sad about leaving is the sours. The sour scene here, I feel like, is unlike anywhere.
Unmatched.
And I definitely won't be able to replicate it.
Chico, you've got to share your experience as well here, because this is like a constant lab topic.
Yes, my favorite thing about Utah besides the mountains is the beer. There's so much good beer. I drink beer now, probably like I have like one a day, like wine. That's normal, right? Like people have wine once a day.
I didn't used to drink beer before I moved to Utah.
Yeah.
I didn't really think I liked it. And there's nothing like being in the cold winter, like coming in from a hike and having one of that bitter Utah beers. It's like,
yes.
Totally take one on the hike with you and drink it when you get to your destination.
Summit beers are necessary. That's your reward for making to the summit. And then it, helps you on your way down.
This is true. Beer also tastes great when skiing. So not at the exact same time most of the time, but okay, I'm so glad we talked about restaurants. Let's see, the next question we wanted to address the issue of, are there cities or areas that are racially charged or have a history of racial discrimination? Are there public spaces for LGBTQ plus communities? And yeah, I guess we'll tackle those two first.
Yeah, I think, we all have our idea of what Salt Lake is going to be like. And as with the rest of the country, there's definitely racial tensions that have increased in the past couple of years. You know, me looking the way that I am with the socioeconomic status that I have not experienced it personally, but I will say that the response in terms of coordinating marches and vigils and like craft fairs that are supporting artists of color have really increased in recent years. And getting involved with those movements was really easy, at least in my opinion, just following the Black Lives Matter Salt Lake City Instagram. They post events basically every single day, and it's a choose your own adventure of what you want to get involved in. There were a bunch of marches and a bunch of rallies during COVID. And I will say that Salt Lake did a really good job of making sure that the marches and the rallies were safe in terms of COVID, so people could actually get involved, which I really appreciated. So yeah, that's kind of like my scope of knowledge in that area.
And Utah generally has a very kind of complicated racial history, because on one hand, when it joined the US, it wasn't a slave state, but the reason for that was because they wanted it to be a white ethno state. And, you know, there's the long history of discrimination kind of fueled by the LDS church. And then on the opposite side, it was one of the first sanctuary cities to be established in the United States for refugees. And so it's a really kind of complicated history between kind of politically with racial and ethnic discrimination. But it's definitely come a long way where there is a lot of pride and appreciation for diversity. One of my favorite events in the city is the Living Traditions Festival, which is a really amazing festival where people from all the different refugee communities come together, and different ethnic groups and different cultures come together to celebrate their cultures through various kinds of celebrations and dances and music and sharing food. It's a really awesome kind of expression of that. And so Utah does have this difficult history, but it is definitely a place where we're trying to improve it and try to kind of reckon with that.
What DEI initiatives are currently being implemented across the university and specifically this department? Lisa, this is your thing, so let us know.
My bailiwick. So there has actually been a lot of positive change, even over the past 5 years. That's been really great. So one is that, when I was hired, I was a joint appointment between psychology and gender studies. And the gender studies program was sort of housed as sort of an orphan program in the college, in the College of Social Behavioral Sciences, which didn't really make sense. And about 5 years ago, they actually reorganized things and they established a brand new School for Cultural and Social Transformation, which houses gender studies, the Division of Gender Studies, Division of Ethnic Studies, and the Division of Disability Studies. And so as a school, we have a lot more power to do things than we did before. And because the whole nature of the school is cultural and social transformation, it sort of gives us, a multi-pronged arm to make progressive social change. And that sort of thing exists both at the university institutional level, but also at different departmental levels. Our own college and department have demonstrated a progressively increasing commitment to EDI issues and to a broader understanding of EDI issues that understands that mental health is a part of EDI initiatives, that different learning styles are a part of EDI initiatives, that different career paths are a part of EDI initiatives, and that if we take these principles seriously, we would change the way we did things. And that has already started. So, we don't have the outcome yet, but I think the thing that I would look for in an organization is whether they're moving in the right direction. And even in the 5 years, the direction has gotten so much better that I've been shocked. that's the directionality that gives me a lot of confidence.
I am an outgoing student. And so I have spent a lot of time looking at other universities and looking at the way in which they speak about their diversity initiatives and report their diversity initiatives. And it is really easy to tell when a school has a diversity initiative page just to kind of placate people who are looking at it. And Utah is not one of those schools like that. They have like clear things that we are working on, clear initiatives that are like the ultimate goal for the school. And then within the department, we've made some concrete changes already, and we already have the ball rolling for more. And so I have been really kind of disappointed with other schools' DEI initiatives because of how much we've put effort in here.
I do want to point out that, sorry, Sheila, just real quick. I want to point out that so the diversity committee last year and this year did a climate survey within the department, and those results are published online. So if you would like to, you can go and see our results on the Department of Psychology's website, go to the diversity tab, and then scroll down to climate survey report, and you'll be able to read anonymous information from everybody in the department that answered about the climate here at Utah on these certain issues that we're talking about. So I highly recommend you do that, because these are things that we just learned about are being taken seriously by the leadership in our department, and are going to be moving forward here in the next little while.
And the report is raw. It's warts and all. It's not edited. Like, I mean, I'm not saying there was dirty laundry, but this is not a sanitized version. This is our own community saying, where are we doing okay? And where do we need work? And that's what you need to know, is where are they doing okay and where do they need work? But the fact that we're taking it seriously, like Logan says, shows that, again, we're on the right trajectory.
Yeah, it's student run and student analyzed and organized and everything. So it's leadership and faculty did not have any part in what's in this report. So I think that's an important aspect to note.
Logan, you read my mind. That is exactly what I was going to say, is go check out our climate survey to really see our commitment and know that we are making actual strides toward addressing each of the points raised in that climate survey. I was also planning to add that I was actually contacted by diversity office at Harvard being like, can we use some of the words from your statement of, your mission statement of your diversity committee? I was like, yeah, like we're a big family. Let's figure this out. So it's just cool. Like when other universities are looking to your diversity webpage. Are we
going to start calling that like DEI plagiarism? Like they're not really committed. They just stole from a more committed institution.
Good point, right?
I was going to do a Google search and say, wow, you published that in X year. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of other folks were saying exactly the same thing.
It's true. We worked a whole semester on our mission statement, so we're really passionate about it. So in the interest of time, I just want to highlight that we did not select these questions based on whether they were good or not. We kind of went from the top downward. We didn't get every single question addressed. They were all fantastic questions. So definitely make sure to bring them up on your interview. We're really excited that you're interviewing at the University of Utah. So I will stop recording in a minute. If anyone wants to say anything or say goodbye to our applicants. Oh, we're waving. Yay. Okay, I'm going to stop recording.